What is good people? Larry Ridley here on Fanalysis. We take the stats born in fantasy football combined with the latest betting trends to find the sharpest angles each week. The lead betting analyst from Pickswise is with us, and he is Jared Smith. Jared, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Larry. Big game for both the Jets and the Giants this week.
Absolutely. You look at the Jets, of course, we'll start with Gang Green. Still have an opportunity to stay in that playoff race. They can't lose any games here or their season is done. The fans thought the season was over last Thursday when they lost at home to the Jags on Thursday Night Football in prime time, but got plenty of help over Christmas weekend, and now Mike White is back. They're currently 1.5 favorites out in Seattle. Will face their old QB. They're not a best bet, but why are you leaning to give the points on the road with the Jets with your pick?
Yeah, interesting line movement here, and it's kind of side and total correlated. So you get the Jets moving to a favorite after Mike White announces the starter. I think that certainly makes sense. But the total actually dropped, which I thought was intriguing because you would think Mike White, the starter, Jets offense should play better, total should increase. But with the total decreasing, I think it maybe decreases a little bit of the volatility involved with this game because let's be honest, Zach Wilson, we have no idea down to down where that ball's going. Mike White, I think a little better sense of running the offense. Geno Smith on the other side has been fantastic. I have to give him his roses because deserves the Pro Bowl nod, certainly deserves all the credit in the world for turning his career around. But when you look at the numbers, the analytics especially, weeks 1 through 8 of the season, top 5 in efficiency. Since week 9, down to 10th. So not a huge drop off, but when you're playing at a top 5 level, then all of a sudden you're outside the top 5, now barely in the top 10. Certainly a noticeable drop off with some of the production, and he is going to face an absolute bear of a defense this week. I think the Jets are the best defense in the NFL. Maybe I'm a little biased, but the one thing they do well, and this is what I think Geno's going to struggle with in this game, they are one of the best teams in the NFL in creating pressure, top 10 in pressure rate, but they blitz at the second lowest rate in the league. And what that means is they can generate pressure without having to commit extra guys in the box. And you have a Seahawks offensive line that's really struggling right now. Their right tackle, Abraham Lucas, a rookie, got hurt in the Chiefs game. They've been rotating a couple of guys at right guard. They haven't played well either. So you've got the entire right side of the Seahawks offensive line kind of in a bind here. And this is a Jets defense that's going to put a lot of pressure on Geno this week. So as long as Mike White doesn't screw the pooch and do what Zach Wilson did last week, I think there's going to be a steady hand in the offensive game plan, and I think the defense really is what's going to win this game for the Jets.
So Jets are favored out there in Seattle against their former QB, of course, Geno Smith, and Pro Bowler Geno Smith, Jared. Don't forget about that. Seahawks, one of just 8 teams that have their games go over than under this season. So why are you also leaning towards the under, Jared?
So the biggest killer of overs, if you're betting one in the NFL or in any football, is when you get into the red zone, first and goal, and you have to settle for a field goal. Well, that seems to be the vibe of both of these teams because neither team has a really good red zone percentage this year. The Jets are actually 4th lowest in the league, 46% converting red zone possessions to touchdowns. Seattle in the bottom 10 as well, just hovering over 50%. Jets obviously defensively one of the best red zone teams in the NFL. Seattle's been a little bit leaky in that category in the bottom 10, but again, you're dealing with a Jets team that I think is just going to be happy to get in the red zone after what we saw last week. Any points are good points. And when you see a total that, considering what we've seen in the NFL this year with a bunch of totals in the 30s, a total in the low 40s, I'm not thrilled about Seattle's defense. They've been the weaker of the units this year on that Seattle team. But I do think offensively this is going to be a conservative game plan. The Jets are going to rely on their defense to win them this game. Running game should absolutely be a factor. And when you have that Jets defensive front controlling the tempo, I think this game trends under.
How well are you feeling about Mike White playing out there and being back from that rib injury? You think the offense hums at a better pace this week, especially with LaFleur calling plays and getting more acclimated? And it seems like they just play better with Mike White under center. It seems like all of the numbers are up. Points per game, yards, and everything way up for the Jet offense when Mike White's under center.
Yeah, absolutely. The one concern I do have is the Jets' offensive line. They allowed 15 pressures against the Jags last week. 13 of them came from center, right guard, right tackle, 3 penalties on that side as well. The left side played okay. Tomlinson at left guard, and Dwayne Brown really has been old reliable, the veteran that they brought in to replace Becton. He's been pretty solid at left tackle. They'll need him to be good because Seattle, they don't put a ton of pressure on you, but they do have some interesting blitz schemes. Clint Hurts done a nice job, first year as defensive coordinator, but overall, you nailed it, Larry. The Jets just seem to have a more comfort about them with Mike White under center. He seems to be the less volatile of the two options. I think we're going to rely on a lot of the running game here, though. Bam Knight's been fantastic. We'll see what other wrinkles they throw in. I don't love Mike LaFleur, especially his red zone play calling, but I think in this particular spot, vanilla should get the job done, especially if that Jets defense is playing at a high level and the Seahawks offensive line not quite up to snub. I do think defense is going to rule this game.
All right, you like the Jets to cover. That means that you like them to win straight up. They just need to win this week and also next week, and have the Pats lose to either one of their last two games, either the Dolphins or the Bills next week to punch the ticket to the playoffs. How do you feel about betting the Jets at plus 400 to make the playoffs? Because if they win and the Pats lose, you know that number is going to continue to precipitously drop.
Yeah, it definitely will, especially if the Jets get a favorable result in New England as well. I think at this stage of the season, if you're willing to bet a team to win, and it's only one more week of winning to get to the playoffs, I think you can easily do some math and tell you that probably an okay bet to make. I would have to crunch the numbers in New England right now and how that game would shake out. But yeah, I mean, if you're a Jets fan and you want to make a lot to risk a little to make a lot, I think that's a fair bet to make at this point, because if they do win this week, they're favored to win this week. So, the odds makers think they're going to win. Then I absolutely think that line's going to shrink to a point where, you'll feel pretty good about your bet come next week.
Yep. So the Jets can get to 8-8 against the Seahawks. All right, we'll end with the other New York team in the NFC, the Giants, a chance to win, and they're in. It's that simple for the Giants, Jared. They win against the Colts, and they are in, and they should win this game. Favored by 5.5 there against the Colts. The Colts just 4 wins this year. Quarterback issues, head coaching issues, you name it, GM issues. They've got a lot of issues in Indy, but you're leaning on taking the Colts and the 5.5 points, Jared. Tell us why you like Indy in this game here at the Meadowlands.
Yeah, it's never that easy with the Giants, right? Like it's just this isn't a team that creates a lot of margin this year. And when I look at this overall Giants roster, I really credit the coaching staff, Brian Dable, especially Mike Kafka. Chicken salad out of chicken excrement is the nice way to put it. What they've been able to do with very limited weapons. Saquon Barkley's been fantastic, but just as well as me, if your best players are running back and you don't have anything else around him, it's really tough to win in this league with all the good offenses, especially the NFC East, which has been, you want to talk about the best division in football this year. Just the fact that the Giants have been able to tread water above 500 with what has been kind of a makeshift roster on offense, especially, I think it's been impressive. But again, the numbers have been good. They're basically a top half efficiency offense. Defensively, they've struggled a little bit. I think that's where Indy can have some success in this game. What we didn't see on Monday night for the Colts was the running game. That's because the Chargers defense has been playing really well over the last few weeks. Giants defense not quite in that same tier. And then, oh, by the way, Daniel Jones 4-7 against the spread as a favorite. I don't like him in that role. I much prefer the Giants in that plucky underdog role. Now the pressure's on, playoffs on the line, you're favored by almost a touchdown. It just doesn't seem like a good spot for New York to put a lot of margin between them and the Colts. Now Nick Foles has to play better, or else his bet has absolutely no chance of hitting. I don't know what we're going to get there. I think that's the wild card here, but I tell you this, he can't play any worse than he played last week. But again, also against the Chargers defense that I think is playing at a much higher level than what this Giants defense has been playing at this season. So we'll see how it shakes out with Foles, but I think overall I don't like Daniel Jones in this favorite role, so I'll skew away from that and take the points with the Colts.
Yeah, just 173 yards of total offense for the Colts on Monday night in that loss to Los Angeles, don't call them San Diego Chargers. Also, you look at the Giants, didn't really want to talk about playoffs this week. I know Brian Daboll and those guys didn't. The players eventually started to midweek and towards the end of the week. We'll end with this. You talk about Brian Daboll and you look at Jeff Saturday at times. He won that very first game, but at times he's lost this season. Brian Daboll definitely has the coaching advantage here. How much are you putting how much stock are you putting into that in this contest here, Jared?
Lot. And I think I'll take it a step further. Let's say the Colts do take a lead in this game and you get the Giants at a much more favorable price, let's say less than a field goal, or let's say they're an underdog at any point in the second half. That's a point I would feel comfortable betting the Giants, because if there's one thing Brian Dable does really well, it's make adjustments. So in an ideal world, the Colts have, let's say, a field goal touchdown lead at half. You go into the halftime locker room, you get the Giants at a pick 'em-ish. Maybe they're laying a point or two, or maybe they're a slight underdog. That's the point that I'd feel comfortable buying in on the Giants, because you nailed it. I mean, this might be the biggest coaching mismatch of the entire season in the NFL. You get Jeff Saturday, who just doesn't seem to know up from down in certain spots, and then you get Brian Dable, who I think has done the best job making more out of less with this roster. So coaching mismatch, absolutely part of the equation here. Giants fall behind, especially at half. That's where I'd look to bounce on Big Blue.
All right, man. That's our guy right there from Pickswise, Jared Smith. Jared, have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Appreciate you. Happy New Year, guys.
All right, have a good one. And that's how he sees the Jets and Giants game. Check out our other segment on Week 17 Best Bets for Jared Smith of Pickswise. We just talked with him. I'm Larry Ridley. Thanks for watching. This is Fanalysis.